Hello everyone and welcome to our new video. I'm Ankit and we are going to discuss about the IPAM and its use cases across the public cloud. Now, if you are working across the AWS into a multi-account model where you are having more than one account, it might be due to your non-prod and prod accounts, or it might be that you have divided your AWS account into the multiple accounts for managing the multiple verticals in your organization and using the organization concept. Then there can be multi-cloud architecture, and there can be the use cases where you have integrated, like there are a large number of countries in which your company is working and you have the offices globally, and then there are corporate offices, there are state offices, and then there is your cloud, and you want to manage an IP infrastructure across those, so that you are able to distinguish between your intranet and internet. So that can be the another use case. In all these use cases, what we came across is the problem of managing the IP address. Now, if you are wondering why the IP becomes so important, so whenever you are creating a VPC or designing a network for managing your infrastructure, then it becomes necessary that the CIDR that you are selecting for these uh, networks, like the private VPC networks that you are creating, you have the CIDRs, okay, the requirement to select the CIDRs. Now, the biggest problem that the administrators faces is like in managing these CIDRs is that it should not overlap. So when I say overlap, it means that if I'm using a particular CIDR range, which is allocated to suppose my one account, then I cannot select an overlapping IP address into the another account, or suppose some of my office corporate account. The problem is that if you do it, then that will be having the same IP address, and if you try to connect those two networks, you will be getting the error, because two networks on the cannot have the same IP address. Two computers within the network cannot have the same IP address. So this is one of the major issues. In order to solve the CIDR problems, what normally the organization does is they keep these IPs into the Excel, and they try to track it using some Excel or some other solutions like your Confluence document, which is like your wiki, and they would try to put and ask everyone in the organization there whenever they are creating a new VPC for their might be the new vertical, new product which they have to launch. And then this becomes keeps getting over a period of time. And if you do not manage the integrity of these Excels, then at a later point in time, when you have designed the infrastructure, created the resources, you came across a problem where the IP overlap basically happens. If this IP overlap happens, then it can be very costly, because at this point you have put a lot of efforts in creating your infrastructure, and because of the integrity issues, or someone might have forgot to update their IP, and they have actually created, or they might not be aware about the process and they are still working on it, and they have created all sorts of resources, and then they at one day they try to do a peering, and or they try to connect it to a transit gateway within the AWS, and then they basically came across this problem where they have a IP overlap issue, and now they cannot directly connect. Now they will try to find out some ways, try to use some proxy whitelisting, those kind of things, but then it's kind of a workaround which you try to implement. It might not be that much secure, and it has its own security risk, and it might not be totally possible to just destroy and recreate the entire infrastructure, which can create another set of big issues. So how do you solve this? Now, this Excel can help you for managing the smaller networks. You can go ahead and do it. Most of the organization does it. But eventually, when the size grows, right? So when it becomes big, the Excel solution does not really work. So when it goes big, and you are now working across multiple accounts, multiple clouds, multiple offices, multiple geographies, right? So as your account goes big, the solution of Excel becomes get more and more complex, and it becomes harder to manage in the Excel. So you should probably avoid this solution, which I have seen across multiple companies, and this is where the IPAM fits into the solution. And this IPAM can solve your issues from the IP management and making the observability, detecting the new IP address. Suppose there are other use cases as well. When sometimes what happens is that we might get an alert, or we might get a request, or we do an NS lookup and we came across a particular IP. Now we need to know whether this IP belongs to our office or it is from outside our office. So in those cases as well, IPAM can really come in handy, and you can actually use the IPAM to quickly look up whether a particular IP belongs to your infrastructure or not, and depending upon that information you can take a well-informed decision. So this is another case where the IPAM can come in handy. So basically the IPAM basically helps you managing the IP address which are there inside your computer network. This is the work of the IPAM, and it can automatically do that. So whenever a new IP, new servers you are allocating inside your infrastructure, creating the new VPCs, creating new subnets, so it can track and show you, even if you are having like hundreds of accounts, and then you are trying to track across them to keep this overlap and the conflict issue at bay, then you can also use it. This is going to help you a lot if you want to put the solution in place for avoiding this costly mistake. Because I said this is costly because eventually one time you realize that if you miss something to put in Excel, it can be devastating, right, for your business. So this is where the IPAM comes in handy. Usually the small businesses try to put it in Excel, but that is something which is not going to work in the larger end, and you will have to bring in a solution where it maintains the integrity and everyone is able to put the details of the infrastructure that they are going to create, the network that they are going to create, and then you can take a proper decision. And someone should be there, like the software should be capable enough to detect some conflicts or the future conflicts which might happen, and should alert you initially, and should not allow you to select a range which can cause this issue. Now if you look at the IPAM, they basically allow you to have the network planning in place. This is the very first thing. And apart from the network planning and getting the IP address details across the multiple accounts and the office's network, you can also go in between managing the DNS and the DHCP IP address information. What this means is, like, if your machines are all automatically getting IP address allocated using the DHCP, then it will also help you provide the information about those machines IP address as well. Also, because the DNS actually resolves the DNS records to the IP, so it also becomes essential that we manages the DNS record and know about the resolution, right, where the IPs are getting allocated. And then if we wanted to make some changes, we wanted to control, and we wanted to track some issues with our DNS configuration, we can easily help that do that with the help of IPAM. So that is the another use case where it helps you to proactively monitor your network configurations and avoid the issues which might be detected at a later point in time, causing the bigger issues for you. So if we look at the IPAM, now there are certain advantages. So a particular IPAM may have all or none, or depending, like few of them. So it depends like which IPAM you select, but the major advantages of using the IPAM is the automated IP address discovery. So it can automatically discover the IP address which is getting assigned to your machines. It can automatically detect the IP address even in your virtual environments where you are assigning them, creating the machines virtually and then assigning the IP address, whether it's DHCP or some other mechanism, then it will be able to detect those IP address. It can automatically discover and track all the IP address even to the machines and the virtual machines which you are creating, and find and reclaim the abandoned IP address. This is very important because sometimes what happens is, like, We allocate the IP address to a machine, and eventually that machine is degraded over a period of time, and that IP address becomes free. But no one have a mechanism of IPAM implemented in your allocated IP address, which were previously allocated, but they are the server and it will get updated. So it basically you are getting all the IP related information, IP address allocation, and the public IPs will be eventually paying some amount into the to want to do an IP address scanning. This is particularly for application server, database server. So eventually you will find some essential that if a number of requests are coming, that you establish the source of that IP address, whether it's within your organization, that is some of your application is actually causing those many connections, or is it something from the outside which is causing those connections. This is very important to troubleshoot whether you are under some kind of security related issue where someone is trying to DDoS kind of attacks are happening on your machine, or this is something like your own system misconfiguration and your application is trying to make too many connections. Things like that is happening. So there again, this IP address scanner can help you scanning those IP address and provide you some meaningful result. This will shorten the time if you would have done it manually by logging to the AWS dashboard console and then searching out for those IPs manually. So this is another advantage. Then you can go with the IP planning in advance. This is also particularly useful when you are doing the network configuration, expanding your infrastructure beyond the one AWS account or the multiple cloud, public cloud accounts. Then this IP planning becomes essential for you to avoid the IP collision and those kind of things. It can manage your IPv4, IPv6 if you are having those. It can be used for both of them. It can help you monitor and troubleshoot your DNS records. Now, this is very important because the DNS records can be split up into the multiple DNS providers. Like you can be using the bind, you can be using some kind of Active Directory, or you can be totally on a cloud provider. So because of the nature on how the DNS becomes so much complex over a period of time, and you must monitor, and if you are having some troubleshooting issues like the resolutions are not happening, or there are other certain problems which is happening on the DNS side, this would be the IPAM will be helping you to resolve them. Now next is network scanner. So you can scan your network using the IPAM, and it will allow you to detect the IPs which are collaborating, how the communication is flowing across your network, and you can optimally allocate your IP address into the subnets as well. So these are like all the advantages which the IPAM provides to you. So you can make the use of them. So let's move ahead now, and let's see a few of the questions which the IPAM can answer for you. This is very important because this will help you understand the solutions that you can expect the IPAM to provide you. So very first question that it can help you is like how can you make it easier for you to organize your IP space? This is very important because when you are dealing with the IP address, there are so many subnets and there can be so many CIDRs that you want to manage the connectivity between them. At the same time, you don't want some collision to happen, some like which can really degrade at a later point you might across come, and this becomes a very big big problem if the infrastructure is very big. How can you automate this, right? So this is our primary goal if you are working as a DevOps engineer. So you need to have a way to provisioning the IP address and updating the DNS records. This is something you would be doing day in and day out for your applications to get live over the network and get the DNS resolution in place. And another thing is how to identify the IP address on your network. Now, this is something which is becoming more and more complex as the organizations grows geographically across the multiple continents, and they are having multiple offices, multiple regions. They are multiple state offices, branch offices. So all this becomes essential that you have a proper way to scan all these IPs so that you are able to establish the source where the request is coming from. And this can have a bigger results if you are dealing with some kind of a security based issues and organizations which are under the need for high availability and the compliance and the audit kind of issues, audit kind of processes are there. How can I identify and resolve IP conflicts? Now, this is another thing. So you need a software for you to alert you as soon as you select some subnet which is already being used in some other cloud. So all these questions, and last one is how can I find the available IP address with ease, right? So all these questions can easily be answered by the IPAM. And this IPAM will, since it's being tracking all these IPs for you, it comes with a GUI. Now, because of the GUI nature, you can easily go ahead and search it. If you want to make any changes, it also becomes easier to make the changes with the IPAM. And anyone can easily run it. You can also generate the kind of reports if you want, and you can export the IP address list for your network as well. So if you look at IPAM softwares, there are multiple software providers out there, and you can, depending upon whether you want to go with a free open source version or you want to go with a paid version. For the enterprise version, if you are looking for a production implementation, I will suggest you the IP address manager by SolarWinds. Now, this is not some paid review that I'm putting here. This is just to get you understanding about the IPAM software and how it can help you the network management of the IPs easier. Why I said that this is very good, because it comes with a lot of features. I have personally reviewed it. It has so many enterprise grade level features available, which can really help you out while planning and managing your network in an organization as a process. And it does comes with the automated features where you can use the SAML, and those kind of automation solutions can be built in and integrated into your IPAM, because this becomes essential over a period of time when you want to automate them, right? So it has the support for JIT, the SAML, these kind of solutions to automate it. Next is IP address tracker. Now, if you are just starting and you don't want to go with a paid software, then SolarWinds has a free version also available because of the open source nature. So you can use that IP address tracker as well. Now, there is Infoblox IPAM, which is free and paid. There's BlueCat IPAM, which is a paid solution. There's BlueCat IPAM, again, which is paid. Lightmesh IPAM, which is paid. And there is a PHP IPAM as well. Now, this has been written in PHP and it's a free version to be used. So this is somewhat way to explore more about the IPAM, get the understanding and explore. And if you really find that this is something which you want to look at from the enterprise grade, then you can go ahead and upgrade it to the enterprise paid version, which is going to come with those features as well. So PHP IPAM is there, which can help you get started and manage it, but you need to understand that there are some caveats of using the PHP IPAM, which is like it does not support the JIT provisioning with SAML. So this is so if you are trying to automate this and trying to integrate and create the authorization, trying to associate the roles so that the users are able to get the definite permissions, and they are only able to access this kind of resources inside your infrastructure, then this PHP IPAM, it can be a little bit difficult, although it has an integration with the Active Directory, and it allows those authentication using the Active Directories if you have that implementation in place. So that is about the IPAM softwares which are available for you to use. Now, let's quickly take a look at few of the dashboard which these provide. Obviously, there is an IP address manager, so you can scope the different DSCP servers. You can get the DNS record mismatch. It will automatically point this out to you, so it will scan and show you this, so you can go ahead and resolve the conflicts. It will help you to clean and better manage your network. At the same time, it will show you the reports, so and generate the configuration which can be optimized in your infrastructure. So that way you can use it for planning, detecting the risk, the things which are already abandoned, and the fix that you can apply into your infrastructure to make it more redundant, optimize your network. So those are the things which are available in the IP address manager. It's an enterprise grade. Then there is IP address tracker. If you just want to track and search option should be available with you. It's more like if you just want to get away from the Excel and maintain a piece of software which is going to track all those information for you in a much more reliable way, then you can use the IP address tracker. And this is the view that you can expect from the IP address tracker. The last one is the PHP IPM, and we actually discussed about this. This is a free version which is available, and you can, it comes under the open source. You can directly download it from the PHP IPM. It has a very good documentation. It can it has a number of possibilities where it's going to show you the subnets, VLAN, VRPF devices, NAT, right? So you can have all that information in one place, and people can directly go here and search out for the IP address within your network. So this is all about the IPAM and how you can best use the IPAM to keep a track and get the more information, even if your infrastructure becomes bigger and bigger, which is happening nowadays because of the microservices architecture being followed across the multiple organization. So that's all for this video. And if you have some questions, you can raise those questions in the doubts. I will be in the comments of this video. I will be happy to answer them. And do subscribe to our channel. Thank you for and see you in the next video.